Welcome to Fable Sonder, where every story inspires and connects. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to support us. Now let's dive into today's tale. Sit back and enjoy.
Fable Sonder, the stories of hidden life.
Today, we have a heartwarming and unexpected story about a young nurse named John who takes a surprising path to love. When he helps a mysterious girl in need, he defies the wishes of his wealthy father and the ruthless administrators of the clinic where he works. Let's dive into the story and see how it unfolds. John had been working as a nurse at a private clinic for about 2 months. He wasn't one to socialize much or try to make friends with his colleagues. The staff at this clinic all considered themselves above those who worked at regular hospitals. Whenever a new person joined, they would look down on them, treating them condescendingly for a long time. But John didn't care. He wasn't bothered by their attitudes. In fact, he even looked down on them in his own way. He wasn't going to be fazed by their superiority complex. After all, he was here to do his job and make a living, not to win any popularity contests. One nurse in particular, Zoe, caught John's attention during his shift. She wasn't shy about expressing her disdain for her profession. Zoe had come to the clinic not to save lives, but to find a wealthy man to marry and live a life of luxury. She had a very different outlook on life than the rest of her colleagues. John couldn't resist probing her about her dream. But young and beautiful people hardly ever get sick. "How are you going to find a man worthy of you?" he asked with a smirk. Zoe's response was as casual as ever. "Age and looks aren't that important to me." John raised an eyebrow. "So you're hoping to marry for money? What's wrong with that?" Zoe shrugged. "Thousands of girls do it." John chuckled. "Yeah, but those girls prepare for it from childhood. They learn languages, diet, look perfect. Not like you." He took in Zoe's appearance with a critical eye, his smirk turning into a slight smirk of disdain. Zoe, who had been enjoying her pastry, suddenly choked on it. She glared at him. "Are you calling me fat?" John quickly backpedaled. "No, no. Of course not. But to interest a pampered rich man, you need more than just charisma." Zoe huffed, but John could tell that his words had struck a nerve. From that moment on, Zoe became a sort of enemy to John, or at least that's how he wanted to see her. He didn't like overly curious people, and Zoe had crossed a line in his mind. She even poked into his food when he wasn't paying attention, but she quickly gave him the space he wanted afterward. At least, that's how he thought things were going to be. One day, John overheard 2 young nurses gossiping about something that had happened the previous day. Apparently, the chief doctor had fired one of their colleagues just for being 10 minutes late to work. "Can you believe it?" one of the nurses exclaimed. "She couldn't even explain herself. He just fired her on the spot." John was curious but decided not to get involved. The gossip continued as the nurses speculated about John himself. "He's kind of strange, isn't he?" one of them said. "He's handsome, but he doesn't seem to have a girlfriend. Have you seen his watch? I saw a celebrity wearing one like that in a magazine." The other nurse snickered. "It's just a knockoff, isn't it? Why does he even wear it?" John wasn't sure how to feel about the conversation, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being scrutinized by everyone. It wasn't just his job that he was trying to prove himself at. It was his entire existence. He had never imagined himself here, working as a nurse at a private clinic, but now that he was determined to make something of it. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have been able to picture himself in this position, but here he was, trying to carve out a life for himself. Later that night, as his shift was coming to an end, John was getting ready to leave when he noticed something unusual outside. A fierce blizzard had struck, and the snow covered everything in a thick blanket. As he looked out the window, he saw a girl struggling through the snow, stumbling as she tried to make her way toward the hospital. She fell to the ground and John rushed outside without a second thought. He scooped the girl up from the snowdrift and carried her back into the hospital. As he rushed to the ER, he nearly collided with a doctor at the entrance. "What's going on here?" the doctor asked, bewildered. John didn't stop to explain, simply carrying the girl into the ER. Inside, John quickly examined the stranger. She was clearly suffering from hypothermia, her body battered with bruises. She seemed conscious but weak, her gaze fearful as she looked at him. "Who are you?" she asked in a whisper, her voice trembling. "Don't worry, you're in the hospital," John reassured her. "No," she murmured. "I can't stay here. I need to leave." But her legs gave out, and she collapsed into John's arms. At that moment, the chief doctor stormed into the ER, waving John's employment records in the air. "Get her out of my hospital," the doctor yelled. "I don't need people like her here, bringing trouble with them." John's heart sank, but he wasn't about to back down. He grabbed his papers, not even bothering to answer the doctor, and turned to leave. Zoe, who had witnessed the entire exchange, looked absolutely ecstatic. She seemed to enjoy the drama unfolding before her. John ignored her gaze and quickly left, deciding to take the girl to his apartment. He had no other choice. The cab rides were difficult to come by with the girl looking so ragged, but after several failed attempts, an elderly man in a Chevy finally stopped. As they drove, the man muttered, "You should stop letting your lady drink so much, huh? Look at her. She doesn't even look human." John realized with a pang of embarrassment that the girl's haggard appearance had likely scared the drivers off. But he couldn't worry about that now. His priority was getting her safe and warm. At his apartment, John made her take a hot bath, and when she sat down to eat, she began to come back to life. She introduced herself as Kate, and John couldn't help but be struck by her beauty despite her rough appearance. When John asked about her bruises, Kate hesitated before revealing the shocking truth. "My stepfather, he's been abusing me," she whispered. "My mother died a year ago and he's been trying to force me into marriage with his son. He wants my inheritance. He thinks if I marry his son, he can get control of my mom's farm and avoid an audit." John's heart broke for her, but before he could say anything, she collapsed in exhaustion. He quickly took her temperature, 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Without hesitation, he administered a shot and reached for the phone. "I need to make a call," he muttered, knowing that his own resources wouldn't be enough to help her. "Hey, Dad," he said, dialing his father's number. An hour later, his father arrived and immediately began criticizing John. "You can't do anything without me, can you?" he scoffed. But when he saw Kate, everything changed. John explained everything, and to his surprise, his father listened carefully. "I know it's hard to believe," John said, "but I like her, and I want to help her. Please, I need your help." His father, after a moment of silence, agreed. He wasn't happy about it, but he understood that John was serious. A week later, Kate's stepfather made a desperate attempt to reclaim control, but John's father stepped in, ensuring Kate's safety. With his father's help, John and Kate eventually married, although it was clear that their relationship was based on something deeper than just an escape from danger. A year later, John had fully taken over the clinic, much to the shock of his colleagues. Zoe, the nurse who had always looked down on him, was now working under him. As John and Kate stood together in front of the clinic, their future seemed bright. Despite the complications, the charges against Kate's stepfather, and the twists and turns of their lives, they found happiness in each other's arms. Kate, who had once been running from her past, was now building a future with John. And as they stood together, John knew one thing for certain: he was never going to let her go. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button. It's just a small action, but it means a lot to me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.